This woman did not even imagine that she was destined to experience such an incredible event. Anita Moorjani was among the few who managed to return from the dead and tell about the amazing events taking place outside our earthly existence. February 2, 2006 was a turning point in her life. After a long struggle with a serious illness, her body could no longer stand it, and she fell into a deep coma. Her condition remained so severe that the doctors admitted their impotence. One of them told her husband, "Her heart is still beating, but in fact she is no more. We did everything we could. All you have to do is say goodbye." For her family, it sounded like the last blow. The room was filled with silence, in which fear, pain, and despair were mixed. But no one knew that at that very moment, something absolutely amazing was happening to Anita. She later said, "My body was lying motionless, but I was aware of everything that was happening around me. I heard the doctor's voice addressing my husband and felt his grief, but I knew it wasn't over yet. I continued to exist even though no one could see it." At some point, she felt her soul separating from her body. It was like lifting a heavy load that she had been carrying for many years. The pain was gone, and the weakness was gone. My body, which had held me down for so long, was no longer an obstacle. I felt weightless and extremely relieved. This condition brought her a sense of liberation that she had not experienced for many years. But the joy of what she was going through was overshadowed by the fact that she saw her husband, overcome with fear and despair, begging doctors to continue fighting for her life. His face reflected so much pain that Anita tried her best to comfort him. She tried to tell him, "I'm here, I'm with you, everything's fine," but her words didn't reach him. She realized that she had become invisible to those she loved. Her voice remained unanswered, and no one felt her presence. "At that moment, I realized that my existence had changed," Anita recalled. "I couldn't be a part of their world anymore, but I was still there, watching my loved ones struggle with loss." This realization was both a discovery and a test for her that changed her forever. The senior doctor suddenly entered the room, and Anita's attention turned to him. She noticed an inscription on his uniform that allowed her to identify his name. Dr. Chen. The situation required immediate action, and the doctor decided to transfer Anita to the intensive care unit. Relatives had to stay outside the door, waiting for news of her condition. Anita faced a completely different experience that distracted her from the outside world. Suddenly, she felt her consciousness going beyond the limits of her usual perception. The boundaries separating her personality and the surrounding space seemed to disappear, and she felt like a part of everything that surrounded her. This sense of unity was so vivid that it was the beginning of a new experience. Her consciousness seemed to push the boundaries of reality, allowing her to perceive what was happening in several places at once. She saw the worried faces of her family standing outside the door of the ward. At the same time, her attention shifted to her brother, who was on a plane flying from Bombay to Hong Kong. Time ceased to be linear for her, becoming a single and continuous field of events. Anita later described it this way: "I saw everything around me at the same time, as if I was in the center of a circular panorama. My perception extended far beyond the limits of my usual space, covering thousands of kilometers. Time flowed differently in this dimension. I was simultaneously experiencing moments from my past, living the present, and feeling everything connected with these events." Then she finally realized that her illness was not an accident. It was a consequence of her life path, the decisions she made, and the emotions she had been suppressing for years. "It was my fears and accumulated stress that formed the ailment that was exhausting me," she said. With that came another incredible event that left a deep mark on her mind. Her father, who died a few years ago, appeared right in front of her. Their relationship during their lifetime was far from simple, but his unexpected presence brought her a sense of peace. Despite the frequent conflicts, she always had warm feelings for him. Anita recalled this meeting with special trepidation. "I greeted my father, but I did it not with words, but with some kind of inner impulse. My thoughts seemed to be transmitted through invisible waves, like a radio signal. Later I realized that in this unusual world we communicate not with words, but through emotions and sensations. This way of expression turned out to be much more accurate than any language. Thanks to this, a complete understanding arose between my father and me, which we never managed to achieve during his lifetime. He told me that he had been by my side all this time and had not left me. As soon as she finished talking to her father, Anita felt another presence. She turned around and was surprised to see her best friend Sonia, who passed away a few years ago. Sonia smiled and admitted that she had been with Anita all the time while she was struggling with a serious illness. However, her amazing meetings did not end there. Soon, Anita saw other familiar faces of people she had known during her lifetime. She felt that there was an invisible connection between them all, uniting them into something more. Gradually, it became clear that they were parts of a single whole. Life appeared to her in the form of a huge pattern, woven from many threads. Each thread symbolized the person with whom her fate was intertwined, from her first childhood friends to those who surrounded her in her last days on Earth. Anita later described her feelings as follows: "I realize that the universe is infinite. It has no beginning or end, and I am just a small part of it." Once outside the physical world, she felt as if she had awakened from a long sleep. It was like the end of a prolonged nightmare. My soul, freed from limitations, began to shine with its true nature. She expanded beyond the body, time and space, leaving behind all the boundaries of the material world. Then she rushed into an unknown dimension, where everything was filled with light and freedom that I had never felt before. Anita Moorjani told how another amazing truth was revealed to her. God, regardless of what he is called, permeates the entire universe. At that moment, she felt his love with every cell of her being. At this time, when the innermost secrets of existence were revealed to her, she again felt the presence of her father. He informed her that her path was not yet complete, and it was too early for her to continue moving to the higher realms of the other world. Her mission has not been completed yet, and she needs to return to complete her Earth program. Anita replied doubtfully, "But my body is destroyed by the disease. How can I get back into it, and why?" Her father helped her to understand an important lesson. If she can see the greatness and beauty of her soul, her physical body will recover, and the disease will disappear forever. Although Anita did not believe him at that moment, she could not resist the invisible force that gently but decisively returned her back to her earthly body. After 30 hours of coma, Anita suddenly came to her senses, which shocked those around her. The return was a real shock for doctors and loved ones, who no longer hoped for her recovery. But even more surprising were her stories about what she saw and felt while in a state outside her body. Anita described in detail everything that was happening around her at that time, including what could not be found out in the usual way. For example, she knew for sure that her brother was on the plane while she was in a coma, and it was confirmed. However, the biggest miracle was that her body, destroyed by a severe form of cancer, suddenly began to recover. Doctors, stunned by her condition, conducted numerous tests, which invariably showed that the disease had disappeared. Anita said about it this way: "A few months later, I heard from the doctors that I was completely healthy. They checked over and over again, but the results invariably proved that the cancer had disappeared without a trace." After this amazing return, not only her physical condition changed, but also her outlook on life. She learned to see the divine in everything, even in the slightest manifestations of nature. "Now," Anita said, "even a small insect inspires me with awe. I know for sure that no one disappears without a trace. We all just move into another reality. The world is much more complicated than we used to think, and its boundaries extend far beyond the material. There, beyond these limits, everything is so beautiful that it is impossible to doubt his divine essence." Another amazing story about the return from the dead belongs to the famous clairvoyant Arthur Ford. He returned with an important message for the living. It all started with a serious illness that affected his body. The doctors frankly stated that his chances of recovery were almost zero. They recommended that Arthur prepare for the worst, put all his affairs in order, and accept the inevitable end of his earthly journey. Despite their pessimistic forecasts, Arthur did not give up trying to fight. Nevertheless, lying in the hospital room, He admitted to himself that he doubted whether he would live to see the morning. He later recalled, "I was surprised how long death had been approaching me, but one night it happened. I suddenly realized that my soul had separated from my body. She went up, and I saw my body lying on the bed. From the outside, it seemed completely alien to me. Without fear or sadness, my body looked like old, worn-out clothes that had already served their time. I mentally said goodbye to him and set off on an unknown path beyond physical existence." Arthur described how his soul, as if floating, moved through space. The amazing thing was that he continued to feel like a complete person, despite the lack of a physical shell. A place of incredible beauty opened up to him. He saw majestic mountains, endless meadows, lakes with crystal-clear water, and slender trees. This whole world was flooded with a soft, warm light that seemed to come from everywhere, filling the space with harmony. But his journey did not end there. Soon he met people. Some of them were familiar to him. These were those whom he had long considered dead. However, there were also completely unfamiliar personalities next to them. Later, Arthur learned that there is a special law of attraction of souls in this world. They are united by internal similarity, just as gravity acts in our world. Good souls are attracted to good ones, whereas those whose lives were full of sins find themselves surrounded by their kind. Arthur Ford spent some time in the other world before suddenly realizing that he needed to return. He felt his soul grow heavier and rush downwards rapidly, like a falling stone flying into the abyss. This abyss turned out to be his own body. When Ford felt the boundaries of his physical shell again, he opened his eyes. The doctors were shocked, calling his return to life a real miracle because this could not be explained by any medical explanation. After his recovery, Arthur shared his conclusions. "The clinical experience that I had to go through made me reconsider a lot. I realized that our ancestors were right when they claimed that man consists of two bodies, material and spiritual. Of course, different cultures call it different things, but the essence does not change. The spiritual body is connected to our immaterial essence." Ford described the spiritual body as a form of pure psychic energy. According to him, it tests a person, and its existence confirms that life continues after death, albeit in a different form. He considered his experience to be a vivid example of this truth. He also claimed that our universe is just one of many. When we look at the stars and think that we see the whole universe, we are deeply mistaken. Only a part of us remains attached to this world, while our true essence goes further, to where the expanses of the otherworldly begin, Arthur said. Ford emphasized that the question should not be about whether there is life after death, but about what it will be. "What I experienced in the other world gave me firm confidence. Everything begins here on Earth. It is here that we must learn kindness and humanity. If a person lives with these values, then the transition to another world becomes a bright and joyful experience. If he neglects the good, the other world can turn into a place of suffering and darkness for him," he said. "I believe that we, those who were able to return from the dead, are given a chance to convey to the living the most important truth. Love and kindness are not just virtues, they are the basis of all existence. They connect our earthly life with what awaits us beyond its borders." Write in the comments what you think about these words, and whether you believe in life after death. Dear friends, thank you for watching my video to the end. If you liked it, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's very important. Thank you, and have a nice day.